Okay, welcome. Welcome. It's Katrina and Renee. And today we're going to talk a little bit about sugar, but really we're going to talk about one of the challenges around why it's so hard to give up that sugar habit or kick the sugar habit to the curb. And so there are multiple challenges, but this is just one we're going to talk about today. And it's a really cool one because we're going to talk a little bit about the polarity of food, right? So it'll help you understand why sugar becomes a craving in the first place. So, the concept of polarity is pretty simple. It's based on the principle that everything has two polarities or two extremes. And for example, hot and cold are extremes of the pole called temperature. And it's the same way with every apparent opposite. You have hard and soft, quiet and noisy, light and dark, good and bad. So where you find one thing, you're going to find a potential for its opposite. So when you look at the world through the lens of polarity, it's to look at it in pairs, dark, light, night, day, yin, yang, male, female. But you're probably wondering, how does this apply to food? Okay, well, first we need to consider that food is simply more than simply just fuel for your body. It has the energetic qualities that are beyond the science and the mechanics of calories, fat grams, and nutrient values.
This is where the woo-woo comes in.
Yeah.
The energetic qualities of food. This is like, you're talking my language now.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about why this polarity in your food, how it's actually creating your cravings. So let's get into it. So if you have a mental picture, so you're going to have an extreme, right and an extreme left. So let's talk about the one extreme, like on the right, you're going to see an extreme of expansive bliss. And the foods that represent this energy are represented in alcohol, caffeine, sugar, dairy, and to some extent fruit. So these are the foods, what do you think? These are the ones that are going to cause you bliss. When you eat them, you're happy. Or when you drink alcohol, you get happy. When you drink caffeine, you get all jittery and,
awake,
productive, right? You get productive and you buzz around, right? Same with dairy. Eat some ice cream, you're happy, right? So these foods make you feel light. They make you feel relaxed and happy, blissful. But how many times have you actually eaten too much of these types of foods and then you start getting spaced out, right? You may even get forgetful. So those are the extreme bliss foods. So they're on the one extreme end of the spectrum. And then on the other extreme are the contracted tension foods. And these foods are contracting versus expansive. So examples of these foods are salt, eggs, and red meat. And these are the kinds of foods that put meat on your bones. They make you feel grounded and focused and aggressive. But what do you think happens when you eat too much of these types of foods? You may start to feel agitated or tight or even angry, right? So you have those two extremes, and that's all fine and good. But how do they, the polarity of food, these expansive bliss and these contracted tension foods, how do they relate to sugar and sugar cravings? Well, if you think of life as a system of opposites and your body's always trying to balance itself out, what do you think happens when you're having too many contracted foods like salt, meat, and eggs? What do you think your body might start craving to balance itself out? It's going to go to the other extreme. It's going to crave
sugar,
sweets, yeah, or wine, or that martini, right? So what your body's trying to do is balance itself out. Like, have you ever done, Katrina, have you ever eaten too many potato chips and then you're like, I need an ice cream, or I need a piece of chocolate, right? It's your body saying, okay, you've had way too many salty items.
So if I have too much of the vino, my body craves more sugar. And
really?
so that's what, so I can have I'll have let's say I have a bottle of wine, and then I'll want ice cream, and then I'll want donuts. Like I want, my body is almost like, oh, you're giving me sugar. Let's go, balls to the walls, like fill me up. So my body
Wow.
just really wants more sugar. I'm in that time frame, but then the next day I'll be like, oh my God, I just want like eggs and toast, or I want a burger. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
do that anymore as of last week. No, I'm just kidding. But sometimes it has changed a little bit, because I remember in my early 20s, I could drink and just drink, I mean, I'm going to relate it to alcohol, because I'm not a big sugar freak. I'm not a candy person. My kids, on the other hand, but I was never really a big candy person. I prefer like the chocolates and the pies and donuts and breads, all that kind of things. But again, if you know how the human body works, all of that converts to sugar, right? So what about you?
I am like you, I like my wine, but if I drink wine, too much of it, or alcohol or beer or whatever, I don't crave more sugar. I actually go for, you know what I always crave when I drink wine? I crave quesadillas, the salty
Cheese.
cheese, right?
Ah, yeah.
So I do, my body's trying to balance itself out by doing
Because
that.
it's
So,
going
but
to
I'm,
drop you.
yeah,
But
but
cheese
I'm
is
like you.
dairy,
You're
but it can be
right,
heavy. It's a
but it's
fat.
salty. I think it's the saltiness that I'm craving
Oh,
because,
okay, okay.
yeah, because I think when you heat it up, I don't know. That's what I
Now I'm just
find.
wondering, how long has this recording been? And we're already talking about wine.
I
We're going to
know.
have to do a show while we're drinking wine one night.
Yeah. Yes. I
I
know.
swear.
I know. It's funny, but it's true. And that's, like you, I never really had, I mean, I sort of had a love-hate relationship with sugar, but I've never been completely addicted to it. But what I did find is that I like my sweets. Like I used to, like once I start eating something sweet after a meal, like I have dinner and I'm like, well, where's dessert? Come on, I need dessert.
Yeah, because you've had your heavy. So now you want your little expansive bliss.
Yeah, exactly. But then what happens is that habit, you know how they say habits take like 3 weeks to kick in? Well, not when it comes to eating sweets. It's just like I have
No,
it
I can stick to this. I'm consistent with this one.
yeah, it's like, all right, I had, dessert after dinner last night. I'm gonna have dessert after dinner tonight, and maybe even after lunch, right?
And then you start
So
to crave it more, hey?
yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, and you know what? I'm a big fan of hot chocolate. I love chocolate. But I usually do the dark chocolate, but during the winter months, I, would go in and have my, that's my comfort drink. I go and make a cup of hot chocolate and
So, side note, a healthy alternative. I know there's a healthier way to make hot chocolate. So, if you're
Mhm.
using the dark cocoa and reduced sugar, but if we all know, I mean, we've preached this many times before. If we're having over 70% dark chocolate, it's beneficial for you. So, if you can get those, I buy them at the dollar store. They're 80% chocolate, and it's just like long chocolate rectangles. And so I will dip that in tea after dinner. And so
Really?
like the chocolate melts in the tea, and then I'll eat that, but I eat it very slowly, and it kind of does the same thing. And I'm not getting all of the sugar from a hot chocolate, but that's just another, option that is out there, is to my sister actually introduced that to me. She's like, this is my
That,
favorite afternoon treat. And I was like, what a
wow.
good idea. That's
That
actually
is,
not bad.
yeah, that's an awesome
And
idea.
talking about the expansive bliss, I'll tell you, when I was working corporate and I would come home at 4 o'clock, it was kind of having that transition phase from work and then into home. And I was like, okay, now I'm home. And then like, my shift at home started. And so you go straight into the kitchen to make dinner. Well, I hated that. I hate cooking. I hate that I have to make dinner. I was like having this real negative hate on. So I started drinking wine as soon as I got home, because it made making dinner less hateful. And what it would do is it would relax me. So then I didn't hate cooking so much. And then I wasn't mad that no one was helping me. And I was just, taking care of everything myself. But then as time went on, I did start to crave it. And my body was craving that expansive bliss after working all day, because there was no transitional phase. And I talk about this in other, topics. But how to, reduce your stress is having a better transition. And this was before I know what I know now. And so I wasn't having a proper transition, and I would just go straight into the kitchen and then hate cook my meals for my family full of anger. But then the wine would make it a little more blissful and fun. So it definitely does its job when, we're talking about the energetic qualities, and then that relates to who you were being and what you're doing at that time.
Well,
I don't do
yeah.
that anymore, but that was past
Yeah.
Katrina.
But that is a perfect example, because when you think about the polarity of food, it's not just eating one food to balance out. And if you're eating something salty, then you're going to want something sweet. It's also those activities. So you have contractive activities versus expansive activities. So your contractive activities are like running, working too much, partying too hard, those things.
Staying up late.
When you're doing that, your body's going to crave the opposite, which is the expansive activities, which are sleeping, taking a bath, reading. But if you don't do that, you're going to convert that into food instead. So if you're not going to take
100%, because how many times, and I'm wondering, everyone that is watching or listening, how many times have you had a crap night's sleep, and then the next day, all you want is coffee, chocolate bars, little sour keys, whatever, like little candies and sugar pumps to keep you going. I'm like, I'm not even interested in eating food. I'm just looking for that false energy. And then I'm still tired. I'm still searching. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many chocolate bars you eat. I can't seem to get that, kick to waking up. But that is prime example if you have a bad sleep. And so that's why I became a professional napper for a little while there. So, if your kids are going through a rough time, or if you have a sick kid, or if you have young kids, I called it a ninja nap. And so I mastered the art of a ninja nap. Instead of looking for fake energy, I would kind of barricade my children in. So I knew that they were safe, and I would pass out on the couch only for like 20 minutes. But it was like, I just needed to go under, get like a deep, 20 winks, and then come back out of it. And it would rejuvenate me 100% more than Timbits and coffee. Although, let me tell you, when you're doing physical activity, Timbits and coffee is a really good pick me up. And then one day I calculated the calories, and I was like, okay, we have to stop the Timbits and coffee. But sometimes that can make you really high. But it was only temporary. Yeah. Don't eat that. Don't do that. That's not what we're promoting. I learned from experience, learned from my mistakes.
Yep, exactly. And that's, and that's the whole thing with this polarity. And that's what, both Katrina and I do, is if you come to us, either of us with this, thing like, I can't stop eating sugar. It's not just about what you're eating. It's, you got to look at your whole lifestyle and see
everything that you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we need to understand what your typical day looks like. Right. Because then we can help.
And talking about, so I'm going to tap into like the woo-woo part for a little bit here. So I love the food has energetic qualities. And then of course, what you're doing in your day, how are you expending your energy? Like what is draining your energy and what is refueling your energy? And so, of course, like I'm in the Reiki world and I work with a lot of light workers. And so when I have my, psychics come to me and they're like, Katrina, like I got to get a handle on this. And I do actually. So a lot of my psychics are larger women, because they're always operating in those top 3 chakras. So their bottom chakras aren't getting as much energy moving through them, because they're always, if you're in a psychic reading, or if you're doing tarot cards, or if you're doing Reiki, you're operating up here quite a bit. And so I find that, and some of the psychics that I work with who are doing some real deep work, like finding missing persons, talking to the other side, I actually know some ghost hunters, so doing some paranormal work. But that involves a lot of energy in higher dimensions. And then as soon as they come back into their physical body, they want to ground. Well, what do they want to ground with? They want pop, they want burgers, they want fries. They're not looking for that expansive bliss at all. They want to ground. They want those heavy, meat foods that are going to bring them right back down. So it's really working with people to try and get those bottom chakras working, And then how can we transition and balance your body out so that you're not pounding down that fast food? But I'm not going to give you the answer because that's coaching. Then you need to knock on my door and say, Katrina, I need help with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just something that happens. So, and then the other thing though, like if you work graveyard shift, or if you're student studying, or if you are training to be a marathon runner, if you're doing all of these contractive activities, then you're going to say, okay, like I want the wine, I want the sugar, I want dairy, I want ice cream. You crave all of those light, expansive bliss foods because you want to kind of get that high, that relaxation, because your body is so contracted. You're looking for that feeling of the energetic qualities running through the body. But now let's talk about the healthy energetic qualities, because as much as we've gone to the extremes of your expansive bliss and your contractive, I mean, if you're looking at the energetic qualities of food, continuing with the polarity of food, what about green leafies? Green leafy foods are grown in your garden, and they're grown from the sun. So the energetic qualities of our vegetables, you're getting that sunlight. You're getting all of that, nature's liquid, like all of the goodness in that. So that's why we promote. Yes, I know you have to eat your greens, man.
Yeah, and you can think of it as they're uplifting because they grow upward, right? But they're still grounding. That's one of your balance foods to kind of keep you balanced between the contracted foods and the expansive foods. And then there's the opposite of that, which is the root vegetables, right? The ones that are
beets. Oh my God, I love pickled beets. So, but that's okay. It's okay to eat pickled beets.
I find they taste like dirt, but that makes sense.
Oh, I love beets and roasted beets and your turnips and your squash and potatoes. So all of those are fine to eat as long as it's roasted or boiled, not deep fried, right?
And they're naturally sweet. So
yes, so you're 2 for 1. There's a 2 for 1.
You're satisfying your sweet tooth by eating them, and you won't crave those other sugary substitutes, right? So that's a bonus.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. What else? What else is there that's balancing? You have that. You have your grains as well, right? And your meat, your poultry, and your fish are also kind of balancing as well. If you if you need
the middle ground, you're balancing out foods.
Yes. Yeah.
So we want to try and eat more balancing foods than our extremes.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that should help you if you are having trouble kicking that sugar habit. It's just something to think about. I just find this is a really nifty topic because it's just a different way to look at it.
Yeah,
so.
I was introduced to that a couple of years ago, and I thought, oh my gosh. Well, of course, as soon as they said food has energetic qualities, which I really didn't think about. I know food is medicine. I know that what you eat will help all of your body function, but then thinking about it kind of in a different light, like the polarity of foods, and that they have the energetic qualities, I was like, what? Mic drop.
Yep. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that we want to talk about today, or is that enough for us?
I think that's a good one. I think that's pretty good. I have nothing else to share.
Well, awesome. Well, it was nice chatting with you, Katrina. And
you too, Renee, as always.
All right. Awesome.